So if you look, we look at this cloud, if we look at these, right? Um, the way we want to think about it is we have the blue behind the clouds. And so we're going to come up the background, put blue in, come up to this top edge. And then down below, we have the darks that we're going to bring in and then kind of try to move up into the white, but leave the white on top. And there's a couple approaches to this. One is just to come in with the wash at the top and then try to just soften some of the edges. Then come with the darker part of the cloud, the shadow part, bring that in, and then kind of move down. Now, we're not going to worry about the land right now. We're just going to make some very simple clouds to start with. So here's the first thing is that we can tape off our paper. So you want to get a new sheet of paper out. And then we're going to make four squares here to do some practicing. So I'm going to take some tape but what I want to do is I run it along the edge because this is 9 by 12 paper. I don't want to put it all the way there. It'll make my boxes too small. So I'm just going to put like a 1/4 inch tape to the edge of this, about a 1/4 inch. So there's only about a 1/4 inch of paper right here that I've taped over, about a 1/4 inch like that. Okay, so you can just eyeball it, but you're just not going to use your whole tape so that our boxes are a little bit bigger. About a 1/4 inch in the bottom, and then on the sides. Yeah. Okay. Side. Like so. Guess I'm gonna have to take this off. Okay. About a 1/4 inch on the sides. So we do this first. Okay. Now I can come around and help you with this.
Awesome, thanks. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to get this thin tape. I can find the edge here. Yeah, here it is. I'm going to take this thin tape. This is 1/4 inch tape, and I'll bring you some. Okay, like that, and then like this. So I come up with four boxes. So if you were at home doing this, you don't have 1/4 inch tape, you could do 2 boxes and then let it dry, pull it off, and then tape down and do the bottom 2. But in the meantime, I'll give you some.
Oh, that's so thin.
Yeah, this is 1/4 inch.
Oh, well, thank you. Mine is so
Sometimes I like that because
thin. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'll just drop some water in here, let that kind of float in there. Okay, now, and then the colors I'm going to use is the cadmium yellow medium, okay, yellow ochre, yellow ochre, yellow medium, medium or deep, either one's okay.
What was the last one?
This is cadmium yellow deep or medium. This is yellow ochre.
Oh,
yellow ochre. Then this is the rose color here. Then over here, you can do a red medium or a red deep or a cad red light. Okay, then burnt sienna. Burnt sienna. Then the ultramarine blue. And then phthalo blue. Now, I think I'm trying to remember who from this class was in my watercolor 1 class.
Miss Tutu.
Yeah, do you remember that? Do you remember doing a color wheel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so your basic primary colors is the yellow, although this yellow is a little bit muted, but it's okay, it still works. The yellow, the rose, and the phthalo blue. And those are the most, those are more pure primaries, close to pure primaries. This primary would be better at a cad red or permanent yellow light, a cad red light or permanent yellow light or a lemon yellow. But I'm not going to need that with everything we're going to do, so I'm not going to put it here. But that plus the rose plus the phthalo blue would be, you'd be able to mix a lot of colors from that because those are very close to your basic primary colors.
Yellow and
A yellow, rose,
rose.
and phthalo blue. Okay? Now, however, some of the other colors help us achieve more of a neutral color without having to mix with the primaries. So primaries can mix a lot of colors, but you got to do a lot of intricate mixing to get to certain places if you have pure primaries. So our burnt sienna is like a red orange that is muted quite a bit. Okay, it's like a red orange. You can make a color like this with your primaries, but you can also just pull this out and it's a little faster for the mixing. And then yellow ochre is a more dull or a neutralized yellow, orange, yellow. And once again, if you want to get a more neutral yellow, not such a bright yellow, that's a nice yellow to have. So that's why we add that in. And then your red gives you a little bit more capacity to mix colors that are from red to orange to red orange to yellow orange. You know, it mix all those colors a little with a really strong pigment sense to it. So anyway, that's why we're kind of using this. Now notice we don't have a green here because we can mix a green really quickly with the yellow and the phthalo blue. We can mix a pretty strong green. So you could have a green, you know, sometimes I'll put a green, but I like to mix it because it's a little more, has a little more harmony with the rest of the colors when you mix it, right? So, you know, it depends on what you're painting. If you have, if you have a lot of green, then maybe you'll put some other greens in there and so forth. But okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Oh, everyone have a pencil? Grab a pencil. Now, I'm going to do this a little darker so you can see it on the screen a little better, okay? But actually, you don't want it dark, okay? So we're going to just put in what might be like a cloud shape, and you can kind of look at mine and follow that. See, where did I put the hand? Oh, here's the handout. So I'm not going to try to just draw all these. There's a lot of little things going on there, but what I might do is kind of start here And I'm going to come down and then go up, a cloud shape like this, come down again, a little smaller, right? And then come up and maybe go like that.
Should we follow you?
Yeah, so try to do it. The thing I'm doing here is when I make these round tops of the cloud, right? I don't want these the same. Okay, you don't want to make two big humps because you wouldn't see that in nature really, maybe once in a long time, but you're going to see variation, right? Okay. And then for the bottom of the cloud, it's going to be maybe a little bit more straighter, but I'm going to make some variation to it like this, maybe something like that. Okay, then right here, I'm going to draw a horizon line like that. So basically, we got this big cloud there, and there's a horizon line. And I'll tell you where I see this. I've seen stuff like this. Have you ever been to Hawaii? You look out there and you see beautiful clouds, and it's just the ocean, and the beautiful clouds. Okay. Okay, now that's sort of our setup here. Now we're going to mix. We're going to start by mixing some colors to kind of get ready for this. So for the background to the cloud, we'll just go ahead and use a phthalo blue. So I'm going to get a little blue, put it over here. Okay. And then, that's fair amount of blue here. And I'm going to come in here and add water. That's going to be pretty dark. Remember when we talked about washes before, you have to kind of look at it and see what how dark you think it's going to be. So that's really, it's moving around and everything, but I can tell that's still going to be pretty dark, which is okay. When I go to do it, I can add a little more water to my brush if I want to not make it so dark. But I don't want it real light. I want to kind of have a darker sky in the background, not a real dark, but kind of medium to medium sort of dark value, medium. And then over here, I'm going to take my phthalo blue again, but I'm not going to get too much on here. Now, the underside of the the shadow on the cloud, usually you want to paint that with a little bit more of a grayish or muted color. But that can range. You can do just a real kind of grayish, or you can do a purplish grayish, or you can do a muted bluish, and they're all going to kind of work. But you do want to kind of mute it, and it'll seem a little more like a shadow on a cloud. And it depends on what the light's like, the time of day, and all that sort of thing. Can really differ. So instead of using a black, we can use a color. So I'm going to start with the phthalo blue here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a complementary to it to gray it. Okay. Now, I could use my burnt sienna. Maybe we'll try that on another one, see what sort of gray that gives us. But if I take a little bit of this cad red, not the rose would turn this purple, really purple. I'm going to take the cad red and I'll bring it into this just a little bit, okay? And I'll mix it around. I'll take a look at it. And it's still pretty blue. Maybe I'll add a little bit more, just basically just touch it, touch the color, the red color. Okay. Maybe another one. Okay, so that's going to give me a dull. It's going to be between a muted blue to a dullish purple color. Okay, so, but instead of just doing black, which would look totally neutral and gray, this will give a little color to it. Okay. So I'm going to mix these two and we'll start with that. Okay. Okay, now the way we're going to do this is we're going to paint the background around the top of the cloud. Okay, we'll paint it. Then, and this is where it might be helpful to have a little smaller brush. You could have the two brushes. This is a 6 and this one's a 10. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to paint that. Then we're going to take our brush with just kind of pure water, and we're going to dip it in the water. Okay, I come over, I dip it in the water. You can barely see it there, but oh, you can't see it up there. I don't know why it shoots it. Okay, anyway, let me go here. Okay, you can see that a little better. Maybe we'll do it this way for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll paint that in, and then after I just paint in that big wash, it's still wet, right? I'm going to come in here and get some clear water, but I'm going to kind of dry it off a little bit so that there is some water on the brush, but not a lot. And then I want to barely touch some of the edges so that the edges go a little softer. But here's the problem. If you have too much water on your brush, all that paint's going to bleed into all that water, and you're going to have a lot of water here. Now, you could erase it by drying your brush a lot and pulling it out. You might have to do that, but I'm just letting you know. So let's give this a try. So I'm going to start with the blue here. Okay, and I come in. Okay, it's a lot of water. Maybe I'll take a little bit off. Not so much. Okay, and then I paint up here. Like so, right? And then I'll actually pull a little bit out. So it's not so watery, right? Pull a little bit out. Okay, now I'm going to take my other little brush here. I'm going to put some water and I'm going to pull off the water and come way up. And this is the trick. Just barely touch the edge, just a little bit. Okay, don't go into the paint, but just touch the edge.
On the cloud.
Yeah, like right where the blue comes. Just barely touch the blue, just barely, okay? So that it softens up a little bit. You're trying to soften the edge. And then, actually, you don't have to do everywhere. You can, and if you're painting too much of a wash, you can bring some water in and just let it bleed a little bit. But the idea is we want to keep this white. You want to keep it white up here. Oops, I just goofed that up. Sorry. Okay, so if that happens, you just take your brush, you really dry it, and you pull out the paint. Okay, so that's pretty good. It's not bleeding back into the blue color too much. Okay, and then just barely touch the edge to break it up. And it's already starting to dry. So that's why you have to go kind of quick on this. And you can kind of work it a little bit so it softens that edge. And it doesn't have to be everywhere. The main thing is try not to get it so you get a blossom going back into the sky color. Just barely touch the edge. Okay, so you see I've just barely gone up there and tried to soften that. And you just do enough to kind of soften it a little bit, and then don't over kind of fuss around with it. Just try to get it a little bit softened. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to paint at the bottom here. I'm going to use my number 10 here, so I got a broader brush. I'm going to come in and paint at the bottom here, a little uneven, and then I will take that and I'll try to pull it up into the cloud, but leave some white at the edge here. So you can see in the clouds here, you got all this shadow, but then you got some white at the edges. So you don't want to take it all the way to the top. So now that's my other color here. And I'll see how gray that is. Okay, and here I come along the bottom like this. Might bring it up a little higher. I want to go pretty quick with this because I've got to try to. Okay, see how I brought it up into the cloud a little bit? Maybe I could bring it a little higher here. Then quickly, same thing. I'm going to come touch these edges and try to blend those edges up a little bit. And I can even break them up a little bit, see? Okay, and then way up here, try to pull this out so it's got an even, kind of blends that edge so it's. Okay, so a little bit kind of like that. Now that's pretty dark, right? It's pretty dark. So how wet is it? Could I go in and, I could go in and try to lighten this up because it's still wet, the paint's still wet. Okay, so I'm kind of messing with it a little bit while it's still wet. Okay, and if I wanted to, I could actually, see that's, now remember how if we put water into something that's wet, you gotta have more pigment on, you gotta be more pigment than the water or you get the blossom. So I'm gonna get some more paint here, add a little more red. If I wanna get it darker, got that blossom, ooh, that's really dark. See, so I got it really dark, but you know, we're trying to experiment here so we can. And that ended up being bluer, but that's okay. What really matters the most is the value relationship. And then with the edge. Okay, so the trick with the clouds is that, and that's pretty dark here, but is try to do enough to make it work, but then don't try not to play with it too much.
Too late.
Too late. You should have told us ahead of time.
I think you really did.
Did you paint into wet initially?
No, but we're going to.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm doing that.
Oh, no, well, yeah, it will, yeah, that's good. Now I'm gonna draw another cloud here, formation. Maybe a little bit different. See how that turns out, maybe a little bit more like this. Now we're gonna leave this for now, let this dry. Now, if I wanted to make this more realistic while I was doing this, I could look at like this cloud and I could pull out some smaller areas, you know, like, dry my brush off, pull some white areas out to make it maybe look more realistic. But for now, we're just trying to get this basic steps here. Okay, so I'm going to go back over on this one and do the same thing again. But when I do the shadow part, I'm going to make it maybe a little bit more magenta. Okay, then clear waters, a little smaller brush. Come to the edge. Okay, now this time on my, I'm going to use the same kind of gray that I mixed up here. But I'm going to add a little bit of this rose to it and give it a little more of a magenta purplish. See how that works. And then I come along maybe a little bit more. Oh, okay, then I want to quickly kind of hit these edges. Maybe pull out some of the paint here. Okay, so ultramarine across here with a little bit of burnt sienna with the ochre. Then here, more ultramarine, really darker. And then added into it while it was wet, a little bit of the magenta and then the burnt sienna here to give it a warm feel at the bottom there. But it's fairly dark. So it offsets and makes the clouds look a little lighter than they were.